Fire Force takes you behind enemy lines. It's Amigos, everything Amiga 296. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Amigos. I'm John.
And I'm Aaron.
And today, Aaron, we're going to be talking about Fire Force.
Yes.
Now,
Why?
Aaron, have you ever been tempted to join up with some of the Special Forces units here in the United States?
Who hasn't, Boat? If I was just going to, because most of the time you can just walk right up and just join in. So if I was going to do that, I would probably go with the Rangers.
Really?
Now, I wouldn't mind trying the Airborne Rangers because, my grandpa was in the Airborne. He jumped out of planes over France, over Germany, the whole 9 yards. He was in the old paper airplane as they came down, the gliders.
Right.
But after talking to him about that, I don't want to join the Airborne. Sounds too bad. So, I've got a friend. Shout out to Big Stevie Cool, my old buddy from back in Lexington. He is an actual factual Ranger. And he used to tell me all the crap that they had to do just to get in the Rangers. In actuality, no. There's no way I could just walk up and be like, yeah, can I be in the Rangers? They would laugh and then pummel me. And I deserve it because those guys are real men. And I'm a little girly type man. But these guys, just to get in there, you've got to go through like deep woods training, mountain survival. There's bits where they just drop you off in the middle of nowhere. There's bits where they just basically torture you to make sure you know how to take a torture, good old-fashioned torturing. So, yeah, it's horribly difficult to get in. And many attempt it, and very, very few are chosen because of the sheer difficulty of the task. What about you?
Well, when I'm in my basement down here, sometimes my hands get cold and I feel uncomfortable. So I feel like my tolerance of pain and just discomfort may disqualify me from the Special Forces units.
Maybe they have a Special Forces like typing branch. You know what I'm saying? Or like
file
or
clerk.
like people that dust. That she can get in that.
It's funny, Aaron. We hear a lot about the Rangers. We hear a lot about the Navy SEALs.
Yeah.
You don't hear too much about the other Special Forces branch anymore, the Green Berets. They're still around, aren't they?
Well, are the Green Berets and the Rangers two different things? I don't even know.
I thought they were. I thought the Green Berets were the Marines, the Rangers are the Army, and of course the SEALs are the Navy.
Listen, are you telling me that me and you aren't experts in the field of the military? What a stunning revelation! No, honestly, I don't know. I like their song, "Fighting Men, the Blood." Da, da, da. You know the one.
It sounds like the theme from F Troop.
No, no. What? It's a song called "The Green Berets." You've heard it? No. Sounds like a future Patreon song.
The end of the Civil War was near. I thought you were going into that.
No. I hated F Troop, by the way. I never liked that show. I didn't like it.
What about Hogan's Heroes?
I didn't like that one either. I just never liked him. It's just such a stupid thing. That stuff's not funny.
You're right.
It's not supposed to be funny.
It's a very strange thing to make a comedy about.
It is. Hogan's Heroes particularly not funny. For God's sakes, I'm telling you, having again, going back to my grandfather, he was in a German military camp.
Not to mention, probably a lot of when Hogan's Heroes was filmed, the war had not been over for too long.
Yeah,
there were tons of people walking around that were there, and I don't know if they took too kindly to that or not.
It really is an anomaly, that show. Now, granted, those were captured officers, right? And so obviously
they were treated a little bit better.
They were, but I mean, still, theory. At the end of the war, everyone got treated not good, and no one was like, "Man, this is great. Let's stay in." They were not doing that. And also the Germans, there weren't a lot of Schultz walking around. I know nothing. They were mostly on the ball. They're not that idiotic. So I don't think that was good for anybody.
Yeah. Well, Aaron, let's leave this riveting discussion and turn to this week's. Let's turn to this week's Amiga news. We're going to kick things off here with the Gamble train as it rolls down the tracks with a story about the Re-Agnes project. All right, Aaron. This is not a real product yet. This is a work in progress. This is a drop-in replacement PCB for the Amiga Agnes chip. Now we're seeing more and more of this stuff these days as these chips become more and more difficult to come by. And this is something that you can, I guess, replace your Agnes chip if it gets destroyed or something like that. Aaron, you're a bigger hardware guy than I am. What do you make of this thing?
Well, listen, can you go out and buy yourself an Agnes somewhere? No. Can you hork one out of an old machine? Oh, yeah. Well, listen, that means the pickings are slim, Boat.
Mm-hmm.
And so if a dude could come up with a replacement, you're in, because eventually you're going to need these. And so this is, from what I've read, I did a little bit of looking into this after you pointed me in this direction. From what I read, they're not there yet. I mean, it's all mega prototypical stuff. But it's not the worst idea, and it opens some doors somewhere down the line. But yeah, I'd say this project's going to be a long way before they get this thing off the ground. But they've done just from what I've read, they've got the design parts down. So, and you can actually it's kind of like roll your own type of thing, but it doesn't look like it's ready to go yet. We'll see though. It'll be interesting to keep an eye on it.
We'll definitely keep an eye on this as it's updated. All right. Our next news story comes to us from the only 10-minute Amiga retro cast. Doug is back with a new video about his favorite subject, graphics modes on the Amiga.
This was I have to say, I watched this the other night when it got released. Doug is several levels, several floors above us when it comes to this sort of stuff. I mean, I watched this and I scratched my head in a vain attempt to understand what was going on here. But Doug's just talking about different graphics modes, different types of, different ways that how graphics work, how the functionality of the various graphics modes, deep stuff. Man.
Mm-hmm. And I will say it makes it, whenever you look at any of these images, it makes it immediately apparent at the fidelity at which an Amiga computer from the late 80s could render a digital photograph was so far and away above what was going on any other platform. It was laughable.
Oh, yeah. And it's still, listen, this thing is still there. It's in there. I mean, it's amazing that you can still do some good work with these things. Listen, there's a reason why every game and everything was made with like D-Paint and all that stuff. It's because the Amiga, the capabilities of it were off the charts. And Doug, you got to give Doug credit, man. His grasp of this stuff is really, I mean, I tip my hat to him. A proper commentator on this sort of stuff. This is the kind of crap. Remember when we covered D-Paint about episode like 12 or so? Was it Will Williams that came on to help us out?
I think it was.
Because I remember you were like, hey, I've got a guy here that knows a lot about D-Paint. And when we got Will on, he was like, well, I know something about it. I was like, well, this is going to be an interesting episode. Because me and you didn't know jack squat. From seeing our pictures, anyone that's seen them would know that. But yeah, this is good stuff from Doug. Of course, Doug never releases a dud. So if you're really into the graphical side of the Amiga, this is a must-watch. Must-watch, Boatster. Well done,
Absolutely. Doug. Let's move into a realm that we're more comfortable with, Aaron. Some new Amiga games.
Yes.
We've got two to talk about this week. Two new releases. The first one, and both of these stories come to us from our buddy Neil over at Indie Retro News. Definitely check out indieretronews.com if you want the latest and greatest releases from all the retro computers. This is a game called Invia. Unfortunately, this follows the grand tradition of Amiga games that are spelled, confusingly and difficultly, which lead to them being difficult for other people to discover because they're constantly want to spell them wrong and don't know how to pronounce it. But
cool font.
At any rate,
you hate these wacky names, don't you, Boo?
I do, because I feel bad for the people that make these games. They pour thousands of hours.
But they know what they're doing. Look at the font and stuff that he's written. That looks awesome.
Yeah, I see. If you look at that box and then you had to type that into a search engine to purchase it, it would give you pause. Let me say that's all I'm saying.
Let me guess. INV, the number 1, couple Y's.
Yeah, exactly. That's all that needs to be
symbol.
Said. Now, let's talk about the awesome thing about this game, which is the game itself. This looks great. I guess that this has been long in progress. This was first announced in October 2016. It is just now being released as a commercial product. This is a horizontal shooter in the Gradius R-type tradition, and man, it really, really looks good. I had a look at this at the product site here over on polyplay.xyz. They are selling several different versions of the game.
Yeah.
You can buy a version for the Amiga or the CD32. The
right.
pricing starts at 17 euros for the budget version on the Amiga.
Yeah.
You can, which is just the disc and the manual, but it's still boxed, shrink wrapped, and all that stuff. A really good deal for a boxed game. You can get the budget CD32 version for 19 euros, but if you're into this thing, you might want to consider the collector's edition, because the
Ooh.
collector's edition only adds $10 to the purchase price, 29
Yeah.
euro. And it includes the micro SD card, which includes the the disc image bonus material. You can fire it up on an emulator. And Aaron, this thing comes with a woven mission patch that you can iron on.
Nice.
Bam.
You know, Bo, looking at this, and I don't, and the thing is, I can't remember the name. We covered something on R. Sinclair one time that it reminds me of this with all the platforms in the middle of the level, and that's what it reminds me. It looks great. Now
Maybe more T Vicker or something like that.
I don't remember. It could have been more T Vicker. Now, here's what it works with. I don't know if you mentioned that. It says here, Amiga with at least, that's every existing Amiga with 512 chip and 512 extra RAM, PAL or NTSC. Wow, that's outstanding, Boat.
Yeah,
You've got to give this guy credit for that.
That runs. Again, this guy, he knows what's going on. Tiger Skunk is the developer's name. Mr. Tiger Skunk knows what's going on.
Well done. And the price is, I'd say the price is about what you would expect. I don't.
The price is much lower than what you would expect.
Well, yeah, when I say that, that's what I mean. When I say, wait a minute, what's up with that price? That means it's
when
more
we
than
live in a world where you can buy that new Atari 2600 game, the collector's edition is knocking on $100.
Yeah.
A collector's edition that comes with an iron-on patch, a poster, a sticker, the micro SD card, plus the box, the manual, and the disc. Outstanding deal. This is definitely the way to go. So check that out. Again, hats off to Tiger Skunk.
And again, it's called Nvidia.
Yeah.
If it was INVIVYA, Nvivia, something like that, I could deal with that. But Nvidia, right. Maybe it's a language thing, Boat. You never know.
Maybe so.
I like it though. That looks. We got to give that one a whirl, Boatster. That looks right up our alley. We could suck
now
that.
This next game, Aaron, is also going to be right up your alley.
All right.
This is Knight Rider 77, and this thing harkens back to the glory days of a machine, maybe like the Odyssey 2, maybe like the Apple II, or even maybe even something like the Fairchild Channel F could have run something like this. Aaron, this is a throwback game. It's a top-down racing game where you are trying to overtake cars on the road. You're limiting your damage. You've got a limited amount of time. The road is constantly widening and shrinking ahead of you. A really cool looking game. It's not much to look at, but sometimes these games are a lot of fun to play. You know what I mean?
It looks like someone ported Nightmare Highway over from the
Nightmare Highway.
Yeah, I knew you were gonna sing it. This is your classic. This looks like your classic gimmick here. Wow, look at that. That's when I used to deliver pizza, and that would happen occasionally. The road would go from incredibly wide to one lane. Man, that's a tough. Who would have a race here? What were they thinking? Let's have a race this busy one lane road. I will say the road switches are unusual. This looks like just your old school, Night Driver or something like that. I mean, and I'm assuming this will run on anything.
This will run on you need at least an Amiga 500 because you need that 1 mega chip RAM to get it going.
That stuns me. That looks interesting. Night Rider.
As we've seen, the graphical fidelity of the game and the system requirements do not always go hand in hand.
Fair enough.
You never know. This was written in AmiBlitz 3.8.0, so who knows what the requirements for old AmiBlitz are.
I will say I did have an Odyssey game. It was very similar to this, except the road didn't change. You just got points for passing guys. That was it. So that's kind of neat. It might be fun.
Yeah. All right, Aaron, our final news story comes to us from your one and only true love in this world, Mr. Shane R. Monroe.
Listen, I call him like I see him, Boat. I'll watch this today. So listen, if you've ever listened to this show in your life, you've heard me talk about Shane R. Monroe from the old Retro Gaming Radio, which is literally was the first podcast I ever heard, and it was the first retro gaming show I ever heard. This thing debuted way back in the late 90s, mid to late 90s. And Shane's been around for a while, but he's always been an Amiga guy. In fact, I've tried multiple times to arrange an interview with this guy, but it's like getting an interview with like a president or something. I just can't pull it off. So anyway, if you have ever gotten any of the Amiga Forever packages, you'll know that in the audio section of them, you'll hear Shane interviewing the guy that makes Amiga Forever on one of the old retro gaming radio shows. So Shane's actually been a part of the package to some degree for a long time. And this time out, he takes a look at the new Amiga Forever 9 / C64 Forever packages, which I've been toying around with these myself. Shane really gets in the nitty gritty on these. And he's going in that new mode with the thumbnail mode. What do you think of that, Boat? I don't know if you'd seen it before.
This is something that Amiga Forever honestly has needed for a long time.
Yeah.
This is a great way, because sometimes you want to play something and you don't want to scroll through a list of titles. You want to pick by screenshot. I use a website called Atari Mania for this all the time when I'm looking for stuff to play on the old Atari 8-bit.
Yeah.
It's great because sometimes something will catch your eye, and maybe the title is something like Invia, and you're like, I don't want to play that. But when you see what the game actually is, you're like, heck yeah, I'm in, man.
Bam! So, there it was. Well, you're not wrong. And by the way, of course, the thumbnail thing also great for the demos, which he's looking at the demo area right there. So you've got all those thumbnails. It's a great idea. Mm-hmm. Something else he does that's a good idea. You've got your Amiga Forever package, you've got your C64 Forever package, two separate packages. Well, what you can do effectively is join them. And so you've got one package, and all it does is basically add a folder, a C64 section, so it's all one big program instead of having to load up two programs. I always thought it was kind of silly.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I love that because I always forget that I have C64 Forever. I was going to fire up Barbarian, the other day to play for Flack's show. And I loaded up my Mister, and it wasn't in the folder that I had set up. And I was like, well, guess I'm not playing Barbarian. I have C64 Forever on my computer. Yeah. I should have just fired that up, and I forgot about it. So you
can see Shane instantly loads up Edgar Vigdal's classic, the Deluxe Galaga. Shane actually, I think he talked to Edgar, and I know he ran the Deluxe Galaga webpage for many, many years. It may still be up. So that's one of his favorites. I think he even got credited in Warblade. But anyway, this package is good, and Shane really gets into it. He gets into every part of it. He doesn't go into the system parts of it that much, but in terms of the games, how to add a game, what the RP9 system is, why it's a good thing, for adding the games to the system. He also goes into how to tweak, the setup, stuff you would expect from how to use video, and he goes into it. He even touches on the stuff that he doesn't like, and it's the same thing I've been fighting with him about for a long time. But same with you is the fact that there is no way to capture footage from this internally. There should be some sort of record button on this to capture video, and then capturing video with it, like via Windows, is just tough. The way it works is just weird. And so he mentions that too, and I was kind of hoping that was something that would get addressed this time around, but I guess it didn't. But anyway, it's really good. Shane did a great job. It's all chaptered up. So if you're interested in learning about Amiga Forever or C64 Forever, this is a great video to look at. Shane did a real good job on this, and this will help you if you're trying to dip your toe in the pool of Amiga or C64 without having actual hardware, Boat.
Awesome.
There you go, my friend.
All right, Aaron, our final news story is, of course, our new Amiga hardware, the pick of the week from RetroRewind.ca. And this week, Aaron, we're taking a look at the A500 Kickstart adapter. This thing just went up on the site. This is an adapter that you can use for your Amiga 500 Revision 5. So I guess the new So I guess reading from the site, new Kickstart ROMs that are being produced are EEPROM based, and the Rev 5 motherboard of the Amiga 500 isn't able to use one of these newly produced Kickstart ROMs without modifications. Were you aware of that, Aaron?
Well, I did. I was aware of that. I had read that. Now, of course, I've got the one Amiga 500 that's jacked right now, as you know. And it's funny, we've got all these Amigas, but the 500 is the one I use the least and have messed with the least. And so it's probably the one I learned least about it. That's a wedge. But I didn't realize it was as simple as just getting a new socket and sticking it in there. So that's a good deal. That's a great boon for people to have.
Yeah, so all you have to do is just socket this Kickstart ROM into the adapter, then socket the adapter into the Kickstart socket, and you're off and running. This thing is ultra cheap too, available to you now for only $10.
Yeah.
And of course, the best part is that you can save 10% off this and any order over at Retro Rewind by using the promo code Amigos10 at checkout. Use that promo code Amigos10. You can save 10% off any order from Retro Rewind, and we do appreciate those guys over there, and we thank them for sponsoring this week's episode of Amigos.
And I want to mention that while you're there getting your socket upgrade, why not just pick 3.1.4 up from him as well? The discs, the chip, it's all, if you're here in North America, it's a bang operation. Listen, I don't have to tell anyone that mail overseas right now it's wacky time. And a lot of the Amiga suppliers, and this is nothing against them, but a lot of the ones based in the UK, for example, I mean, the UK's mail system's all jacked up right now. You just don't know how it's going to go. And so, I tell you, if you're in North America, there's no reason not to just pick it up here. You get a nice discount, and it's quality stuff, and it will show up because you're in our mail system here. There won't be any worries about it. So something to think about when you're going for that sort of thing, Boaster.
Absolutely. All right, Aaron, it's time. Let's go ahead and switch on over to this week's game of the week, Fire Force.
All right, Boaster, Fire Force. Now, I will start this off by saying I played the wrong game twice before I finally played Firefight. I played another Fire game, and finally I went back and was like, oh, Fire Force, I got it. Because I kept reading stuff. I was like, what are they talking about? Well, I'd played the wrong game 2 different times. So third time's lucky, Boat. I'm guessing, my friend, that you'd never played this before. Am I right?
Never played Fire Force.
You're not a big run and gun military boy, are you?
Well, no, I wouldn't say that. I like a lot of games like this. Not necessarily like this, because we'll talk about what kind of a game this is. But I like Contra. I like Metal Slug. I like games where you run around with a gun and shoot stuff.
Let's talk about Fire Force. First of all, the name is cool. There's no denying that. Released in 90. Now, I'll tell you something. There were 2 versions. Let's get into this right away. There was a version that's released in 94 for the CD32. I played the ECS OCS one for my entire journey into this thing, and I looked at the CD32 version, and I didn't see much of a difference except for the button setup. Which one?
Yeah, I think it's pretty much a direct port.
Yeah. So this came on 2 discs, 92. Published by ICE. We've talked about ICE in depth in a previous episode, but they released some games, and some of the games escaped from ICE, and the one that escaped that comes to mind is Akira, which was just that one's bad. They also published Gulp, Deep Core. I hear my personal favorite, Boat, Gnome Alone. That sounds like a right up your alley.
Why have we not played that?
I don't know.
Where are you at, AGSC?
Mean Arenas, which we did cover that one a while back, if you'll recall. I think I got like 6 copies of that. And Total Carnage, Boat. Now, who developed this? Well, it was developed by a couple guys, and so I wouldn't call them a developer as I would call them a couple guys. I don't know if they're working. In fact, everywhere I went, when you looked at the developers, they were basically like, which usually means just a couple guys. So the guys that worked on this were Dave Gibbons and Stephen Day. Both those guys only had really one other Amiga credit, and which was a game called Stormtrooper. So which we haven't played, so I'm not familiar with that one, Boaster. Again, this did have a CD32 release and the OCS ECS. This was according to everything I read, this was developed at the exact same time as the Atari ST version. They said the Amiga was the lead of the 2, but having looked at both of them, I mean, I could not pick one out of the lineup and say this is. I mean, they look very similar. The Amiga one might be a little smoother, but I mean, without playing, I'm sure if you played it, you might be able to tell the difference. Just from watching a video of it, it looked about the same. boat. So this again was as close to an Amiga and Atari ST exclusive as you're going to get. Looking at the notes over on Hall of Light, they said that this was originally scheduled to be released by an outfit called Electronic Zoo, which that's a great name. I don't think we ever come across them before, Boat. Who unfortunately went out of business, and so ICE picked up the game, did some extra work on the game, and then released the game. So that's what you've got here. So, Boat, and this game I would say was in the grand tradition of some other games from back, like maybe a more in-depth version of, say, something like a Russian Attack or something like that.
Let me explain what's going on in this
Please.
game. Okay, so in this game, you play a special forces agent who's tasked with one of 4 missions to complete. This is a side-scrolling affair where you move left and right across a landscape, destroying everything in your path, killing dudes, and just sort of causing mayhem while trying not to get killed yourself. This game is, I wouldn't call it a straight up run and gun game though. There's a strategic element here.
Absolutely.
And it starts at the very beginning of each mission when you choose your loadout. What is probably one of the most impressive things about this game is the actual loadout screen. You get to choose from, I think, 5 different guns, a certain amount of grenades. There are also explosives, like C4 explosives that you plant. You've got med packs. And the thing that I love about this that's different than the top-down shooter that we played a couple weeks ago that had a similar loadout screen is that you don't buy this stuff, because it's stupid to buy it because you freaking work for the government, okay?
Yes.
So instead, you have encumbrance. You have a certain amount of load that you can carry with you, and you've got to choose the right combination of things to reach that. I think it's like, we'll say like 26 pounds. The unit is never given, but it's like 26 pounds of stuff.
Or whatever
Yeah.
that is. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that lends a sense of strategy to the game because, of course, you want to bring a lot of med packs with you so you can heal yourself, but then you can't bring as many magazines of ammunition. Or maybe you want to use some grenades because these are projectile weapons. Well, you've got to balance that too. So that part of the game is very well done. And like I said, I like the fact that they make it easy to understand with encumbrance. They just say this is as much weight as you can carry. And the selection system is very easy to use. There's an easy way to just drop everything and start from scratch. That part of the game is very well designed.
You know what it reminded me of, was remember
What's
when we
that?
played a game called, and this may be the game you were referencing, I can't remember how long ago we did it, was a game, we played a game called Dogs of War. And Dogs of War let you load out. And I will say I had the same problem in this that I did in that. I don't know anything about guns. So you could line up like 10 guns in front of me. And, and you also have
the problem with Dogs of War can give you a suggested loadout, and this game does.
Right.
So
you're right.
And you had to buy yourself the load. That's what I was talking about. It's very similar to Dogs of War, but it's done better in this game.
Yeah. Well, the one thing I had trouble with in both games was you've got to make sure that if you're going to go and try to do it yourself, you've got to make sure you match up the gun you got with the ammo you got because that could be a problem.
That's important.
Yeah, and also you've got to make sure you are planning. This is one of those games where it helps to go through the mission a couple times to see exactly what they want you to do. Because some missions are going to sort of require you to have certain things.
One of the great things about this game is that it gives you a pretty good detail of what you're going to be doing in each mission. Yeah. There's sort of like the brief description, but then there's also a button that you can click and you can learn more about what's going on. They actually show, and so that I thought that was pretty cool.
I agree.
Now, when you start the mission, it's a very dramatic opening helicopter screen of you coming down and landing, and then you go on the ground and the helicopter takes off. Now, mercifully, you can skip that because if you've seen it once, you only really need to see it once.
It's
you don't see it every
cool,
time.
Boat. I always watch. That was cool.
Okay, but I mean, you do have the option to skip it, and I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Okay, and then you're off to the races. Okay, and basically what you're doing is you're heading left to right. and you're basically trying to figure out where the things are that you need to complete your mission. So in the first mission, you have to assassinate one of the terrorist guys. You know it's him because he's wearing sort of a beige
He's wearing,
colored
yeah,
beret. Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
And so what you have to do, and here's where the game, another cool thing about this game, you don't just you don't just sort of move your way through the level and he's the boss and that's the end of it. He's hiding.
Yeah.
And you have to find him. Okay. So as you're going along, you enter buildings, and because I come from a console background, I always think about the second Zelda game as a point of reference here, because it's a side-scrolling game that you can enter buildings. But there's tons and tons and tons of games that also do that. But anyway, you can go into tents, you can go into buildings, and you explore. And when you're inside these tents or buildings, you're going to find enemies, which you've got to, take care of. But then you can also pick up health packs. You can pick up extra ammo and stuff like that. So you're exploring at the same time as you're doing the mission.
Yeah.
Another cool thing about this game is that when you kill a bad guy, you can actually loot his corpse, and
Yes.
you can pick up stuff that he's holding.
You can swap
and that's
guns.
a really neat aspect of the game too. And the looting system is very easy. You just press space, and you can use your joystick to scroll up and down through all of the items that they have, and you push left to add it to your inventory.
Yeah.
Very, very easy
Yeah.
to do. Okay, so basically that's the game. You accomplish your mission. You have to make it to the rendezvous point. The rendezvous point is set up whenever you're moving across the level. You'll see a number go up as you move to the right and go down as you move to the left. At the beginning of the mission, you're told you need to meet at compass point 41 as the one for the first mission. So you have to go to compass point 41, and once you've completed, or whether you complete the mission or not, at the time that is set by the mission coordinator, you will be picked up by the helicopter. Okay,
Yep.
so you've got to keep an eye on the clock as you do this. There is a clock that's ticking up. In the first mission, you're dropped off at like 8:15 or 9:15, and then you're going to be picked up at 8:33. So you have 15 minutes of in-game time. Now, in-game time is not the same as real game time, as we'll talk about later. But anyway, that's the basic gist of the game. Is you go in, you do what you need to do, you're picked up by the helicopter, and you take off, and you're graded by your superiors, whether you've done a good job or not. And as a result of that, you get various medals, get promoted or whatever, and then it's on to the other missions.
Yeah.
That's the game in a nutshell, Aaron.
Nice summary, Boat. I think you nailed it there. One thing, this game does have the old Dreamcatcher-itis, which a full third of the screen is taken up by gauges and your weapon picture and a bunch of crap that you probably could have done without, to give yourself a little more game room to look at the main screen. You do have a health bar, like Boat said. You can pick up health packs to hit the help button on the keyboard to use them. This game, so I think graphically it looks pretty good. I think it sounds okay overall. I think the controls are a little funky, Boat, in terms of, I mean, I'm not talking about the keyboard commands. I'm just talking about the controls. They're kind of funky. You can't really jump straight up. You jump in diagonals left and right, and then, of course, moving up will move you up and down ladders. But some of the things that can be more difficult to move up and down are like staircases. Also, because sometimes you'll duck when you mean to go down. That kind of stuff. That stuff can be ducking, and it's very pivotal to not dying, because you'll be it's in some ways it's a lot like elevator action, Boat. You have to duck those bullets and stuff. So you could have the controls. I wouldn't say were perfect. I thought they were okay. When you get into the wacky zone, and again, I played the OCS version of this, and I looked at the manual on the CD32 version. They've integrated a lot of this into the gamepad, but on the OCS ECS version, anytime you want to switch weapons or detonate stuff, or pause or use health, it's all done with the keyboard. So this is one of those games where you're going to have the keyboard close by as you're playing, and I don't mean just like occasionally you'll make a tap. You're going to be tapping that sucker a lot, aren't you, Boat?
You use the keyboard for everything but moving and shooting.
Right, yeah.
So F3, F4, and F5 cycles you through your weapons. There's a key that you hit. I think it's the help key is the stim pack, is your med
correct.
kit.
Yeah.
And so you're all the time, you're one hand on the keyboard, one hand on the stick.
Yeah, and you're also using, I mean, you're switching, not only you switching between guns and your knife, you're also switching to grenades. Or you can also, this is kind of neat. You can get these bombs. This threw me off at first, Bode. I didn't understand how this worked. So thank God. This is another one. If you don't read the manual, you're boned. Can you imagine playing this game and never know what the manual says? You just run through the whole game with a knife. You had no idea what you were doing. So the manual was pivotal to this one. But one of the things you can do is you pick up these bombs. Just because you drop a bomb, it doesn't mean it's going to blow up. You have to detonate it. And so what you can do is...
Well, I mean, yeah, that you have these explosives, and in one of the missions in particular, you have to blow up these buildings.
2. Yeah.
And it's kind of neat. You have when you set the bomb, you press a key, and then you see it actually pop up on the HUD. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 4 spaces, and when you push the 1 button, it blows up explosive number 1.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool the way that they did that, and the way that they integrated it into the HUD is pretty neat too.
You could have up to 6 if you take that many. You could have 6 of those detonatable bombs.
Okay.
And it is neat, and you could discharge them in any order. So now, is this important? Probably not, but it's cool.
It's cool.
Something else I wanted to mention about the manual, and I'd say this manual now. The CD32 version of this, the manual is crap. Okay, it is the dirt worst because they folded. You've got that little like CD folder, and it just gives you the in-game instructions, and that's it. And it's got multiple languages. Like if you get the actual manual, there's a thing at the beginning where they talk about special forces and how they became more important over the years. It gives you a lot of backstory to like what's going on. It gives you really detailed instructions and some tips.
Now, wait a minute. Are you saying that the CD32 port was an afterthought and lazily put together? I cannot believe that.
Listen, when someone goes to the trouble of making, I mean, this isn't like a world-class manual, but it's okay, right? But at the end, for example, at the end of it, they've got all the different weapons in the game, and they've got the real-world statistics on them. Who used them? What they were for? That's the kind of crap that a kid, like a teenage boy, is like, yes! I'm ready to kill.
You're right.
When you get the CD version, and all you've got's a little fold. I looked this up just to see what the buttons were like. You just got a little fold out that just tells you how to load and start the game. There's no cool stuff in it.
This was the curse of CD games. The curse of CD games is that you could sell them in the jewel case. You didn't have to put them in a box, so people skimped on the packaging.
That gummit boat, you're right. And now, how many years have I said, I'm not going to collect any box games? But this is another one. This is another level of having the box game pays off. Because if you get the box game, you get the cool manual with all the cool crap in it. It's cool. So, but anyway, manual a must. So, like Boat said, the missions are varied. One mission basically, like Boat said, you go in there and try to kill the guy with the tan hat. There's missions where you just go around blowing stuff up. There's a mission where you are rescuing prisoners. There's also a mission where you're rescuing hostages. So it's not just aimless baloney where you just go to the end of the level. Like Boat said, each mission has a timer on it. The timer is something you have to get used to because you can sort of get lost in these levels and then you're boned because you're running out of time once you bone.
Yeah, and that's really, I mean, are we at the point of the game or at the review where we start talking about our thoughts? Because I got thoughts.
Please give us your thoughts. It's always time for that, Boat.
So basically, what I was talking about before was everything that was good about this game. The concept is sound. You're a special forces operator sent behind enemy lines to accomplish a variety of missions and, make it back to the rendezvous point so you can be helicoptered out of there. That sounds rad. That sounds like an awesome idea for a game.
So why do I feel like there's a burial coming on?
This game falls short in almost every respect. And it starts with the controls. The controls look awful in this game, or they don't work well. This is that Lionheart push the button in a direction and then move the joystick.
You had to invoke Lionheart's name in this.
Listen, that's just what it is. That's what it's known as.
Lionheart's got good controls.
And so when you're for example, if you're firing your gun, you can't just like pick a direction and push the button and fire like up and to the left. What you have to do is you have to hold the button down, swing your joystick up and to the left, waste a couple shots, then your position is shooting up and to the left until the cows come home.
It reminded me of
Until you swing it
RoboCop
back down.
boat. Remember RoboCop was sort of like that too.
It's sort of RoboCop, and that's what this is what the at the bottom of everything. This game controls, looks, and plays like a game on the C64 or the ZX Spectrum from 1987 or 1988.
No.
This game has no business being released in 1992. It's aged and poorly in every possible way. Everything from the graphics. Now, don't get me wrong. The graphics look okay. They look okay. They have more colors than an 8-bit game, but the actual drawings themselves, you could put this on a C64 with no problem. How many planes do you see streaking across the sky in the Amiga version?
You couldn't
How much
do this
parallax
on C64.
scrolling do you see?
You couldn't do this on C64.
No.
There's a 0%
Oh, you definitely
chance.
could put this
No
on a
way.
C64.
No way.
100%.
No way.
Case in point, have you ever played Rambo on the Nintendo Entertainment System?
Yes.
No, you probably haven't. Okay. So Rambo is very, very similar to this game. Okay. This is not a 16-bit effort. Okay. And it's the problem is that this game was literally designed by two people. Okay. These are two people that probably played a lot of C64 games and they wanted to try their hand at making an Amiga game. So they took advantage of the colors, the extra graphical fidelity of the Amiga to the lowest extent possible. I mean, you're right. You couldn't make a game that looked exactly like this, but you could make a game that looked 85% as good and played exactly the same. And here's the thing. I don't even really care about how the game looks, but it controls like an old ZX Spectrum game. The whole aiming of the gun thing, incredibly awkward. The jumping mechanic is laughable. I mean, it's straight out of an old Spectrum game or C64 game. Games released in 1992, your guy should be able to move around a little bit better than that, okay? So that's my major problem with the game. It's just the controls are antiquated. Acceptable in the 80s on an 8-bit machine, unacceptable on a 16-bit machine. Now, here are my lesser complaints. My lesser complaints are that the time limit limits what you can do. Okay. So you can go around and, like, for example, when you first land on, whatever mission you're doing, you go into different tents, you're exploring, you're killing dudes. Before you know it, you've missed your rendezvous point. Okay. So you've got to start over. When you start over in this game, you don't just start at the beginning of the level. In this game, you sort of have unlimited lives, I guess you could say. But what it does is it takes you back to the name entry screen. And then you've got to click on the name, and then you've got to enter a new name. You can't just pick the same name that you picked before. Of course, I just pushed J because I wanted to get back into the action. Every time that you die, you go back to this name selection screen for no reason whatsoever.
Well, they're working a gimmick on that. That's why you go back there, because
they're
the
saying
that last guy died.
I don't care if they're
MIA.
working a gimmick. The gimmick is not conducive.
Well, I'm just saying
to
that's
a good
why
time.
they're not doing it for no reason. They're saying like,
Okay.
it's time to bring another troop in from the roster. Just like they'll have your other guy listed as like dead or MIA.
But you
or
can
whatever.
pick the same guy over again.
Well, you have to sort of rename him, and yeah, I know, but still, I'm just saying that's what they're doing.
gimmick
I'm not saying
sucks,
it's
is what
good.
I'm saying.
I didn't say it was a
Okay.
good gimmick.
Now, so basically, what happens is you die frequently in this game because gunfire takes you out like nobody's business, and the enemies will frequently fire at you from off screen, and you have to fire at enemies off screen. The AI in this game is atrocious. Again, this is AI that belongs in an 8-bit game. It's not AI that belongs in an Amiga game. The enemies just sort of haphazardly saunter about. Sometimes they'll go past you without firing, and then they'll notice you, and then they'll start firing. Whether you're prone or you're up, it doesn't make any difference. This game is supposed to have some sort of stealth component to it where you can get behind stuff, but the game never really makes it clear how you're actually supposed to utilize it. And it doesn't really work half the time. It's disappointing. Okay. Now, when you dispatch enemies, there's cool animations here. When you can fire your gun at them, the gunfire looks cool. You can sneak up, you can slit a guy's throat in a very graphic for its time animation. All that stuff, you can stabby at them, a little bit of that. But at the end of the day, there's really little fun to be had unless you're just a person that likes to do things step by step, where it's all your success in this game will be based on trial and error because of the time limit. You're basically trying to find what the objective is. Once you find it, then you've got to go back through, figure out what kinds of things you need to collect, where you need to go, and speed your way through this thing to get to the end. I recognize that there's fun to be had in that, particularly if the controls don't bother you. Like if you grew up playing games that controlled this poorly, it wouldn't bother you. But if you've played Contra or you've played any other kind of run and gun game, this just isn't going to cut it. It's no good. And so, or another good example is Bionic Commando. Bionic Commando is an awful lot like this game, where you have to go and complete certain missions and stuff like that. The Bionic Commando came out in like freaking 1988 or 1989. Again, for 1992, incredibly antiquated. And for this to come out on the C60 or on the Amiga, the CD32 in 1994, what are we doing here? What are we doing? There's a reason why the CD32 got buried and didn't sell very well, and it was on the backs of lazy ports like this game.
Well, you put a lot in there, Bo. Clearly, you had a lot on your mind, and I'm not gonna disagree with everything you said, but I will disagree with some of it. All right, I kind of dug this game, and I first of all, I never really paid much attention. You're right, 92. This game is probably really pushing it, but I don't really take that into too much account. It's just I play it. I thought it looked okay, to be honest with you. I didn't think it looked that bad. I thought it looked pretty good. There's no way you could do this on the C64. I can tell you right now, I haven't watched a bunch of C64 and played it. That's not going to happen. This is a 16-bit game. It's not. Is it top shelf? No, but it's okay. You've got your guy. Are the controls good? They're not. Are they adequate? They're okay. They're not the best. It does result in some hilarious police squad naked gun style combat where you're shooting at a guy who's exactly right beside you, and you've both got your guns shot diagonal, and you look like a couple idiots that can't shoot straight, and that happened a lot. Do you have to fire early? Yes. Can guys throw stuff off the screen? Yes. Do you need to memorize where the guys are? It don't hurt, if you know what I mean, to do that. Do you have to lob a grenade ahead of you occasionally? Yes, you do. So, and I hate that. So I'm not going to sit here and say it's great. It's great because that's the kind of crap that pisses me off when you do that. With all that said, I like the different elements they put in this game. I wasn't expecting the ability to go in buildings or the different sorts of missions that they would produce. I thought that was kind of fun. I mean, you're right. The AI in this, it's not like they're geniuses, but it's just a standard goofball AI. You're right. It's not like they're not going to blow you away, but this isn't that kind of game. Just go in there and kill suckers. The bit where you cut a guy's throat, it's pretty cool to get up in there if you can pull that off. I didn't expect that. That was kind of neat. I like the gun setups. You get a bunch of different guns, and so the weaponry can be used in different ways.
What are the differences between the guns? They fire differently?
No, I'm not talking. Hold on a second. I'm not talking about the actual machine guns. I'm just like, you got the gun. You've
got pictures of different guns.
No, you didn't let me finish. You also got the bazooka-looking gimmick. You've got grenades. You've got the bombs. You can use all those things in different ways. The machine guns, I couldn't tell this what they did, but they all shoot, is my point. But you've got different types of armaments you can use, and that's kind of fun. I kind of like that. It's amazing how often you're going to use those knives. The knife, I use.
Oh, you use the knife all the time.
Because you don't have any ammo on it. But I mean, you're burying this thing. I thought it was okay. Like I said, there were parts of it I thought were actually clever. Something else I thought was funny when
you think that I'm burying this game, but I said all the good things. The reason why you think I'm burying it is because I said all the good things about it at the beginning of the show, and I left all my negative comments for recently. Well, there's stuff to like about this game. I am not burying this game.
I do like
because but when a game doesn't control well, for me, I don't know about you. For me, control is 9/10 of everything. If I don't have fun moving my guy around and shooting, if it's constantly a struggle and I'm constantly fighting the system, it's not a good game.
Well, the controls aren't the best, but they're not the worst. Like I said, it reminded.
I have a hard time finding a worse control system.
Oh, I'm sure we could find one if we sat here and thought about it for a while. I mean, it's fairly basic. The getting used to using the keyboard element as a part of the overall control scheme, that doesn't help. There are several I can understand why they made these design choices, but that doesn't necessarily increase the fun. For example, the time limit. I like the idea of having a rendezvous time. That's pretty cool. I like all that. They pick you up. But this game is the kind of game that would be a lot more fun to me if you didn't have that time limit, or you had a more liberal time limit that would let you. This is the kind of game you need to kind of. You don't run through it. You walk very carefully through it.
Right. And I think that they obviously, the people that made this game they knew that you were going to have to play these levels multiple times, whether you're playing it one time and you're figuring out all the secrets, at once, and then you get to the rendezvous point with time to spare, or you're dying over and over. I'm sure that if you were playing this game as a kid early on, you'd realize, okay, I'm never going to make that. I'm going to miss the rendezvous, and it's going to be okay. I'm going to miss it, but I'm going to go through these levels and I'm going to find everything that there is to find. I'm going to kill the bad guy, and then I'm going to try and maximize my time.
Yeah. I agree.
The thinking behind that is sound. I don't have a problem with that. It's a different style of gameplay. The only thing that I would change is that you've got to get me back into the action faster when I fail.
Well, I mean, I think I'll look at that aspect the same way I look at the time limit. They were trying to work in a gimmick here. And I can understand why they did it, but if it doesn't make the game more fun, if it makes it more tedious, you ditch that gimmick.
Right?
It's the same thing.
And it's the same thing. It's the same, and that's the problem. Is that I think a lot of times game designers get married to a theme, or they get married to a concept, and they become blind to the fact that they're actually taking away the fun. And just a couple extra things that I think would have really made a difference. One, instead of giving me magazines to show how much ammo I have left, give me a number, because I don't know how many shots. When you fire your gun, you fire in bursts, and it makes sense because you're firing a machine gun, but you don't know how many bursts are in a magazine. And if you're trying to conserve your ammo like you have to in some of these missions, it's really, really difficult to sort of see how much you've got left. Like if you have 2 magazines left, you really have no idea exactly how many shots that is. I would much have rather have just, given me a number. You can still buy magazines in the loadout phase, but give me a number on the HUD. Lord knows you've got room on the HUD for that. And then the other thing is, when you reach the rendezvous point, you need to have a system that if you do get there early, to make time speed up.
There is,
if you get there,
one.
Is there? Okay, because I didn't know about
as I recall, there's a button in here. I think it might be I read this, and the funny thing is, I don't think this is in the documentation. I read this on a forum, and they were talking about it, and it will speed up the time it takes. I mean, for the chopper to get there. It's funny. I was always cutting it so close. You know what I would like to have had? First of all, you're right about the button. I mean, the number for the bullets. But I mean, I guess again, if you're a game striving for some degree of realism, maybe that's their angle. Yeah. And
maybe so. Maybe you're right.
And then secondly, when it comes to the chopper, I would have rather just had, let me get to the end of the level and just hit a button, and then the chopper can show up. That way you don't have to hurry as much. I'd like to have had, and here's something else about this game. Now, why did they, aside from the gimmick, why do you think they put in these real harsh time requirements? So the game isn't very long. From what I watched the guy go do a playthrough, and this isn't that kind of game where, like, if a guy's an expert, he can do the playthrough real quick. I mean, pretty much you're going to play through it just about the same as, when you figure out how to do it. And it's not a long game. So I think that part of it was in there just to sort of artificially make up the difficulty, which this game doesn't need that. It's already, I found this game fairly difficult.
I was not able to complete I was not able to complete any mission without cheating.
I got past the first mission, and then I got almost past the second mission. But when you could skip around, and so there's a mission where you're trying to recover these rockets, and that mission, it's hard to see the rockets. I had a heck of a time. I didn't know what I was actually doing for the longest time. Here's another bit if you're watching at home. I like the guys that are on the mounted guns. If they're shooting at you, if you come up behind them, they don't turn around. They don't swing the gun around. They just sit there and just wait for you to come and slit their throat like an idiot. So, yeah, I mean, again, this is not the perfect game. If I look back on this, if I was like a teenager and bought this, though, I would probably have been pretty satisfied. There's a degree of exploration, the fact that you get to load out, all the cool stuff about the guns, because despite the fact that we don't know anything about guns, when you're a kid and you see like there's like 10 different guns and here's the stats on them, you're like, oh, that sounds cool. Right. Despite the fact that they shoot a guy and they dies, we don't know the difference. But overall, I mean, I'm not gonna go out on a limb for this game, but I thought it was okay. And there are some graphical touches that I thought I'd mention. There are occasionally areas where you actually go behind the scenery. It doesn't happen all that often, but I thought it was a neat touch. In fact, at the very beginning of the game, there's a truck, and when you come in, you're behind the truck, and there's a guy that walks back and forth, and he's right beside you. He's such an idiot. And that's the first thing you see in the game. That's not a great way to start the game. There's another sequence where you crawl through a log. There's some areas where you crawl behind stuff. I thought that was cool. I kind of wish they'd done something with that.
Listen. If they would have made this game control like Contra or Probotector, as it was known overseas, I would have loved this game. I would have loved it because everything else other than the controls is forgivable or better, But I couldn't, the whole aiming of the gun thing, I could never point the gun in the freaking right direction, or I'd get excited and I'd swing the gun down and I'd be shooting at the ground accidentally.
Yeah.
I don't know why they made the controls like that. And also, a lot of times when you're maneuvering around inside, you've got these tight spaces.
Yeah.
I would have rather seen the full building. We played another game like this. I think, remember that Batman game for the ZX Spectrum that was like a comic book?
Yeah.
That made sense in that game because it was like comic book panels, but I would have liked to have seen more of the stage than just those little rooms to give me an idea of where I should have been going. But again, they were going for realism.
I think there was like a fog of war.
Fog of war, sure, and that's cool. That's fine.
It is funny to go in these tents and you're having grenades and stuff go off in them, and there's a guy right beside you. I will say the controls
fighting in tight quarters a lot of times.
The controls take this from an action summer blockbuster to sort of like a comedy or a parody. That's what you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. And so when you have to react that quickly, you've got to have super tight controls. And again, that's why I can't give this game a passing grade.
I think we can both agree that the controls aren't the best, the graphics aren't the best, and the AI is not the best. But I think there's fun to be had. I liked it more than I thought I would, because when I first started playing this, I was like, "Oh, this is crap." Turned it off, and then I warmed up to it. Because when I put myself in the position of having bought this back in the day, this is the kind of game I probably would have got a kick out of. It's funny because I can't stand Contra. I hate that game, and I'm no good at it. It's just not my type of game. Yeah, that kind of bullet hell run around, I just can't do it. I just can't. I'm no good at it. I'm better at this sort of game. Like I said, this is sort of like a Green Beret or a Russian attack if you advance that concept to the nines. And I think this is actually to me, this is a more fun game. I like the exploration and going into buildings and stuff. That made it more fun for me.
Mm-hmm. Sure, I understand.
I looked this bad boy up, Boaster, and Lemon. It's funny, the scores are very similar. Lemon gives this a 7.34, and it gave the CD32 version a 7.35. So there you go. Amiga Action gave this an 83. Amiga Computing gave it an 82. Amiga Format a 71. Amiga Joker Boat, they were not as impressed with this particular title. 30%. Amiga Power gave it a 56. It's just funny. And within a 3-month period, Amiga Power gave this a 56, and the One gave this a 90. So you had two huge differences there on two of the bigger magazines.
Yeah, in one magazine the check cleared, the other one it didn't.
Average magazine, I don't think this is a 56. The average magazine rating was 69. I would probably put this somewhere in the this is I think this is a solid C title. I don't think I could go any higher than that, but I think it's a solid C title. Did we get any sweet action on the Discords, Boatster?
We did. We start with Lord Soup. He says, graphics are functional. Ringing endorsement right off the bat.
Well, I mean, he's right.
Possibly a little drab for some, but gameplay is spot on. Pick your gear and have the Huey drop you in. Cutthroats and stealth it or run and gun at high risk. It's tough as time pressures for your mission prevent you from waiting out the bad guys too often if you want to complete the mission. My complaints are that there are not enough missions and that they could have added more choice to the loadout screen. 9 out of 10 anyway. Great game and a real doozy in the Amiga's library. So Lord Soup loved this game. Graham W. Bebke writes, unfortunately, I'm not really into this Green Beret or Russian attack, depending on where you live, and Rolling Thunder style game. The gameplay is short and repetitive with only a few levels, and you can sometimes move many screens with nothing happening at all. However, it's the time limit that just kills the enjoyment in this game. The art style works for the game. Sound effects are fine and remind me of Airborne Ranger for some reason, and the controls are very similar to Green Beret with the ladders and crouching down. The animations of your character moving and climbing ladders is also similar to Green Beret. Still, I'd play this again with a trainer, disabling the time limit. 6 out of 10. And yes, we should mention that if you play the WHD load version, you can turn off the timer, you can make yourself invincible, you can do whatever you need to do to make this a fun time.
Yeah, I did eventually do some of that stuff after I'd played it for a while, yeah.
Chris Folds writes, sound. Music, none. Sound effects come straight off of Schoolboy's What Does War Sound Like tape.
That's true. That's not wrong. That drum loop at the beginning got old.
Graphics, average. Mega HUD. Inside buildings, small cramped views that try and create atmosphere but just feel cramped. Outside graphics have a strange look that feels like a hybrid of an Amstrad game mixed with the Amiga. Concept, good. Proper equip your soldier of fortune and head out to kick butt Rambo style. Execution, average at best. Controls are awkward and never really gelled. Going downstairs and side buildings requires pixel-perfect positioning, being you often faceplant instead of going down.
Yes.
Annoying time limit. Some weird game mechanics take indoor scenes with the goofy throat slitting. You have 2 guys in a room. You go in and grab one to kill, and the other one waits patiently for his turn to have his throat slit.
He's not wrong.
Just stupid.
He's not wrong.
But what really killed it for me was the lack of atmosphere. Just wandering around with these low-quality sound effects just felt soulless.
Wow.
Super Famiking writes, Fire Force review. When I initially started playing the game this week, I thought it was great, as I remembered it being back in the day. However, after about 15 minutes in, I realized early that there were too many mediocre elements and frustrating gameplay mechanics that meant I completely changed my mind. The graphics are fine, if a little on the small on real estate, and the sound is sparse and uninspiring. The initial run-and-gun Rolling Thunder gameplay bombs quickly when you realize the controls are just horrible. Pixel-perfect stair and ladder mounting positions just frustrate, as does the infuriating time limit. The whole game feels empty and soulless and does little to immerse you by way of atmosphere. Unfortunately, this is a game I'd been looking back on with rose-tinted glasses. It hasn't aged well, therefore I can't recommend it and will probably never return. I feel saddened that a small piece of my gaming history has been destroyed forever. 4 out of 10.
Oh, sorry, dude.
And finally, Level Lord writes, I like this game for what it is and was pleasantly surprised that you can enter buildings and tents and do some unexpected knife moves over the enemies, not just stabbing. Too bad the game is timed and I couldn't really enjoy exploring the levels because I would be presented with the ending sequence after just a couple of minutes of gameplay. Controls are a little wonky but manageable. Graphics are okay with the lack of better scenery in the world. 6 out of 10 for me.
You know,
so yeah.
A couple guys mentioned the going up and down the stairs. It's amazing to me, and we just covered elevator action on the Spectrum a couple weeks ago, or a month or so ago. And elevator action showed everyone how to do that properly, and no one does it, including sometimes ports of itself. In that game, there's a little square. You go onto that square, and then it works. It works every time.
Well, this is the classic thing. In real life, you would never have something like that.
Right.
But it's a video game.
Right.
But again, it's that classic, how do we increase the fun of the video game while sacrificing realism?
Right.
And finding that balance. And that's, one of the things that this game does not do a good job with.
Well, you've got to give Tato credit, because if everyone had done that, how many games have we played where getting up and down stairs or ladders is a huge pain in the butt?
Yeah, or you just make the ladder. You just make the ladder or the stair hitbox bigger, so when you're around it, you just go in. Like with Rolling Thunder, I never really had trouble with that. So.
It's funny. I never thought about this compared to Rolling Thunder, but there is some. I think Rolling Thunder's better, but that's just me.
Yeah. Yeah.
There you
Rolling
go.
Thunder's a great game.
One more thing, eBay. I looked this up. eBay. Now there are none of these in the States. Did this get released in the States in '92? Probably not, frankly. Mm-hmm. You could get this for around $41 US for the ECS OCS box version. That's the one you want, by the way. The CD32 version is going for around $34, and these are confirmed prices. This is pretty much around what they're selling for. So I'm assuming this game didn't probably sell a ton, And so it is one of your rarer titles. I can't imagine them selling too many of these, especially the CD32 version. Like you said, that is a travesty to try to put this on the CD system pretty fairly untouched and then go from there. That explains a lot.
Yeah, yeah. All right, Aaron. Well, let's leave Fire Force behind us and move on to our Amigos community updates for this week. Why don't we head on over to the old Amigos Retro Gaming YouTube channel? What's been going on over there, man?
Well, we had a few things that dropped this week, Boatster. Let's start with, now we moved some stuff around this week in a release, so we're going to start with what me and the Brent covered last week, Boat. And what we covered last week was it was an interesting week because it was interesting because I didn't know anything about these games, stealth games, and I had to go much further up the line than I would normally go for these games because I didn't realize how few of these were around in the retro era. At least now, I tried to be clever and come and try to find something that no one had heard of, stealth, but I really couldn't come up with much, to be honest with you. And so what I went with was a game on the PlayStation called Tenchu, which I'd heard a lot about. It was actually pretty fun, Bo. In some ways, it's a little bit like the game we did on the show today. This was an early 3D title, and it had its own control issues, and it had camera issues and some other wackiness. But, I mean, underneath all that, it was a pretty interesting game, and they really stuck to the whole ninja vibe of it. Brent ended up playing a whole other game here, 005, which is an arcade game that you always see if you've got a MAME cabinet, because it's one of the first games that comes up when you hit MAME. So it's what Had you ever played 005 before?
Never.
Yeah.
I've never played this one.
It's a spy game, which has basically this was thought to be one of the earliest versions of what a stealth game would be, where you sneak around around these crates as these guys chase you with flashlights. But Brent covers this other game and I watched a documentary on this. So it was quite interesting, but it was called. It was basically a game called Shoplifting Boy, where you run around and try to shoplift at a 7-Eleven. It was written in Japan on, I believe it was the Commodore PET back in the day. And this is a real interesting story how this came about. So if you're into these sort of stealth games, we go over like some of the more high points and when they took off. We had a good time with this. I learned a lot about stealth games too, Boatster. So not necessarily my favorite genre, but still interesting to fool with. Boat, let's talk about the Coco.
Yeah, man.
Why don't you show people what we were up to here on the Coco show this week?
So this week we played the Rescue on Fractalus. Of course, this game is probably most famous on the Atari 8-bit computers, but it's a little known fact outside the Coco community that the Coco 3 did get a release of Rescue on Fractalus several years after the original Atari 8-bit release, and it's pretty good. It's pretty good. The animation is pretty smooth, especially if you play the L. Curtis Boyle reprogrammed version for the 6309. It really looks good. It's I was surprised because I'd never really seen the Coco 3 push this hard in terms of rendering a 3D environment before. So I was pretty impressed with this game on the good old Coco. Of course, it being a Coco 3 game is very, very colorful. And it's definitely worth checking out. I'm going to have to try the ZX Spectrum version of this game at some point just to see how it stacks up.
Yeah. I will say the Coco 3 version, it really is top shelf. Like we talked about, it came out several years after the other versions, and they took that extra time and they spiced it up considerably in terms of the layout of the cockpit of your ship. And with Curtis's little hack, the speed differences, I mean, it's markable. It's very welcome, I might add. Let's talk about our good buddy, the Flackster, Jack Flack. I was present for this interesting stream from just a few days ago, where the Flackster goes through and plays a ton of different Joust clones on the C64. Now there's a continual Joust controversy on the Coco side of things, but which you've stirred the pot on a few times.
The old Lancer versus buzzard bait debate.
Of course,
I would go with neither of those and go right for the Phantom and the Mesa Pegasus. Yeah, I don't think any of those words are actually present in the title, whatever it's called.
Yeah, but actually, this is the Pegasus on the C64 here. Really, let's face it.
Boy, that looks horrible. Is that the official port of Joust?
No, we haven't got there yet. This is some sort of satanic bird-based shooter that he played. I thought this actually looked pretty cool, although
That looked pretty good.
they
Yeah,
mocked
man.
this relentlessly. It is wacky. Then you've got this where you actually play the egg. You can see these are real goofy. Then you
Yeah.
got this is the Pegasus game I was telling you about. This is the Pegasus.
But that's not Pegasus and the Phantom Riders.
That's just called. I think it's just called Pegasus. No, it's
Yeah.
not the same.
Yeah.
Then you've got the. This looks pretty good here. Right here, you've got. But these are like you're playing dragons or something. And then there's a few more. And then ultimately, I think that. Let me see here. I think that is that the official one. No, that's the official one.
Okay, very similar to the Atari 8-bit
A few
version.
years ago, they found Atari had done this, but it hadn't completed it, and so someone actually completed it. So it was a real good stream. And I learned a lot about Joust clones on the C64, and of course Jack Flack, always entertaining. I recommend that highly. I always recommend his streams; they're always good. Here's one, Boat. This came out of nowhere. Z9K9's Amigos High Score Challenge video from Top Hat Willie. Can you explain this one to us?
So this week's Amigos High Score Challenge, which I guess we talk about now since we're talking about it, is Top Hat Willie. This is a Manic Miner homage. And, of course, Z9K9, being the games master that he is, did one better than everybody else in the competition and actually beat the game and recorded his playthroughs. So he found all 135 or so of the items that you need to complete the game. And this is just, this is an exercise in a steady hand, nerves of steel, and unquenchable patience to do something like this, man.
I like how you put that. I know I watched a good chunk of this today over lunch, and this game looks exceptionally difficult.
Yeah,
looks exceptionally difficult, but it looks interesting. You got to give Z9. I mean, he's the man. Like I said, enough said. Hopefully, we're going to see more of these. He can show us a little bit of his technique. Excellent stuff there. Here we go. We mentioned this in the pre-show, Boat. Hermsky's latest offering here on the Grange Hill ZX Spectrum adventure game. Now, this is based on a TV show. I'd never heard of this show, but have you heard of it? A BBC TV series?
I've never heard of Grange Hill.
I know this has got it's some kind of school-based gimmick. I'm sure people out there are laughing, but we don't know what it is. We're not from around here. But this looks. I was watching this playthrough, and man, this is this ain't some lighthearted romp. There's a lot of stuff going on in this game.
This is an interesting game because it is there's a text parser, but then there's also a lot of action. This is definitely not one of those games where you are, you're indirectly controlling the character on the screen. You're moving around doing stuff.
Yeah.
But then there's also there's the graphical description of the screen. There's a text description. There's a timer and there's a text parser.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on in this thing.
This sort of remember that crazy. Was it a werewolf game we put on the ZX or a vampire game?
Yeah, werewolf game.
Yeah. This this has better graphics. The graphics
and that
look
game
great.
wasn't a text game at all. That game was just straight up action.
But I'm talking. This guy walks around the city. He goes under the school. He does. He goes up on roofs. He goes everywhere. This looks like I don't know how anybody can even remember all this stuff, but the Hermsky can. He's the Mac daddy. So if you're familiar with Grange Hill, this may be right for you, or just want to watch Hermsky go to work. I don't think this is a complete playthrough, as I recall. I think he was going to pick up some of it there, but it looks good. It looks good stuff, and I'm sure you will enjoy it. So check that out. Last but not least, certainly not least, something else we talked about in the pre-show. This is our good buddy Frodo NL, and this was an epic stream, Bo, if I may say. This was almost 4 straight hours of our good pal. Look at his face. You can tell he's getting himself psyched up.
He's chomping at the bit to get into this stuff.
But he's as bug-eyed as you'll see Frodo, as he goes to work on continual Manic Miner playing 12 different systems of Manic Miner. And let me tell you something. If you ever watch any of my streams, you'll see me go in here and attempt to play these different games, and I'll go in there and suck at them and then discreetly move on, Bode, because I'm no good. Frodo won't take no for an answer. He goes in there and rocks these games. He goes in there. He's a good hand. He's a great hand at Manic Miner, and he amazingly adapts himself to these different systems pretty quick. Because some of these different versions are very dissimilar to one another, you know. And so you have to really go in there and change the way you do stuff. The timings are all different, you know. And sometimes the routes are different. Sometimes the boards are totally different. I watched a good chunk of this stream. I remember the day he did this. This was the talk of the town when he put this together. So I've been waiting for this to pop up. So if you want to see Frodo at his best, at his very best, I strongly urge you to check this out. And also, it's neat to see the different versions of Manic Miner. A very few games from back in the day could say that they were ported to as many systems as Manic Miner. I think there's even a few he didn't get, but I think he got the majority of them. And I think you guys will find this very interesting and entertaining as well. Good stuff from Frodo, our good pal.
Now, over on the Amigos Retro Gaming Discord server, we still have our continuous high score challenges going on. We already talked about Top Hat Willie, but we didn't talk about our Specky High Score Challenge, which is run by Frodo NL himself.
Yeah.
This month's game is the Addams Family. You can get your score in. This closes next week on the 19th of April. So if you're a good hand at the Addams Family on the ZX Spectrum, get that score in. Get that score in, man.
Yeah.
All right, Aaron. We've reached the end of the community section, and now it's time to go into all of the fine folks that make Amigos happen each and every week. And we're going to kick things off, as we always do, with our Twitch subscribers. We record this show live on Twitch every Friday around 5 p.m. West by God time. And you can watch us live, twitch.tv/Amigos Retro Gaming. And you can click that subscribe button and help us out a lot, just like Macintosh Librarian, Mitsuyama, Pints and Amiga, Orom, Eeyore4077, Frodo NL, Krabs MTG, Yola Wookie, Level Lord, Pixels at Dawn Gaming, Drummer, Texas Footballer, Uber Scuba Diver, Jason Warrens, 48K Ram, Lamatza, Retro Jerry, Lord Soup, Peeplo, Rob O'Hara, Negsol, Wide World of Retro, M.I. Steph, Super Fama King, Memories of a Spectrum Gamer, Jigglebox, Captain Chaos DK, Buck Owens, RetroRewind.ca, John Marshall 3, Gary Heather, Still Adolescing, Blue Train, and Super Tech Boy. So thank you guys so much for subscribing to our Twitch channel. And of course, if you like what we do and you want to help us, please consider supporting the show on Patreon. You get all kinds of benefits, including access to our Amigos Retro Gaming Discord server, all the high score challenges, plus you get mentioned in the Patreon song. Of course, there's other things like getting to actually help pick the games we play every week, but really, everybody just wants to be in the song. You know that by now, Aaron. So, Aaron, last week's Patreon song challenge winners, last week's song was, of course, Maggie May by Rod Stewart.
Oh, man.
We had lots of correct responses. Rob Flack O'Hara right out of the gate with a correct response. Jigglebox also got it right. Mitsuyama, the slow Norris, R-Typer, Pac Billy, David Z, and Figgy CTZ all got it correct. If you know this week's Patreon song challenge, please send me an email at john@amigospodcast.com, and I'll read your name as a winner on next week's show. Let's hit it, man.
Seth Yates, Alistair Fiend, Christian Russo, David Z, George Rosansky, The Amiga Show, Daniel Crabtree, Super Fama King, Crazy Loomis, William Vinter, Scott, Heavy Systems Inc., Bundy, Frag, Lord, Mark, Byland, Olaf, Hope, Hermsky, Jonah, AK, Simulant, Alien Breeder, David Loss, Raptor, Cowboy Boy, Lane Denson, Luke Hudson, John Cook on the bass. Frodo and Nell, Soul and Sizer. Tech Mage Jurgen, Mr. Cola. Daniel Williams, Bernard Lucas, Jerry Dennington. Zorglub Reflection, Simon Lech, Cap'n Crispy Kilobytes, Kathy. Gary Heather, Me Free Lunch, Kate Fox, David Pickford, Cameron Armstrong. Andy Jones, Lobsterminator, 10-minute Amiga Retrocast, Bernard Quinn, RMC, Tim Drew, Simon Rose, Joseph Harrison, Kyle Eder, Rob O'Hara, Matthew Larimore, Randy Craig, Shonzo Barkbid, Rolandberg, Andrew Monkstra the Zombie, Leave Kayla, Alan Kebab Choke Chakotay, Leather Lord, John Marshall, Matthew Perron, Ricky DeRocha, Creepy Dead Boy, Figgy C.T., Z, the Solo Norris, Stefan Sorgard, Mortensen, Edvin Helen Blindo, 75, Christopher Hassel, Ravi Abbott, Chris Folks, Lauren Giroux, Graham Bebke, Adam Battersby. O'Brien's Retro and Vintage, Gary Hucker, Paul Harrington, Duncan Styles, Tapes from the Crypt, Josh Nan, Adam Bradley, Jonas Rulo, THT, Eric Nelson, Kim Tommy, Humbert Stad, Daniel Bingston, Brutal Barracuda, Darren Coles, Jason Warren's Pixels at Dawn, Kill your barman.
Horrible. Horrible. That was a beautiful,
Thank you.
sweet song, and
So,
then you came
if
to
you,
town.
Again, if you know the answer, just send me an email at john@amigospodcast.com. Now, before we go, Aaron, I would be remiss not to recognize all the fine folks that have joined us live in the chat room right now. So we're going to start off at the top, Aaron. We're going to start off with our awesome moderators who wield the band hammer like none other, Duncan Styles and Pixels at Dawn Gaming. Of course, we also want to thank Pix for being the Amigos Game Selection Committee leader, the chairman, if you will. But we've also got Amiga Live with us. We got Barkbit, Bitstorm, Blow Jellyfish, Brock 101, Buck Owens, Carbob, Christian Russell, Cobrian, Commander Root, Edvin Helland, Eeyore 4077, Frodo and L, Jigglebox, Great Algae, Ham01, Hermsky, Level Lord, Jason Warrens, Cool 1978, Laserdisc, L, Curtis Boyle, All Hail, Mitsuyama, Negsol, Orom, Picard 2010, R-Typer, RetroRewind.ca, RetroFox, Rob O'Hara, Stygian Sticks, Super Tech Boy, Tom Toms, Tucson's, V&K, Vigoro Pros, Wishbone, and Yanni Yak. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. You know, Aaron, episode 300 of Amigos is only 4 short weeks away, man.
Oh, my. Who'd have thunk it?
Yeah.
Who would have thunk it, Boat?
Guys, we are still thinking about things to do for the show. So if you want to tweet at me with an idea, if you want to put it on the in the Discord on the Amigos 300 channel, put an idea in the spreadsheet. We're going to have a drawing live on the air. We're going to give away Amigos Retro Gaming keychains to as many as we've got. We're going to give them away. I don't know how many are in my bag, but we're going to give them away. And so if you want to get entered into the drawing, all you have to do is suggest a topic for us to talk about on the 300th episode. We will not have a game that week. It'll just sort of be just your typical kind of egotistical navel gazing that all podcasts do when they reach a milestone.
We're going to take it to the next level, Boat. We're just gonna gaze in each other's eyes for an hour. That's it.
All right. Now, Aaron, next week, it is the Boat and Aaron Choice Week on Amigos.
Oh,
so this
okay.
rolls around every once in a while. And next week's game is a game that I picked.
No!
Next week, Aaron, you're going to love this because I always request this whenever you do a stream.
No.
Action fighter. I don't believe that that's true. Action fighter? What is action fighter?
I'm glad you selected action fighter as your pick, Boat. I was expecting much worse.
Oh, this is action fighter. Yeah, it is action fighter. I was thinking of action biker, which I didn't want. But this is action fighter, which I do want. So I'm glad. I'm patting myself on the back for picking the game that I wanted to play.
It sounds
Good
like
job.
that lobotomy went through, Boat. What the hell? You picked the game, you knucklehead. You don't know
Listen.
your own game?
I don't know what's going on.
What's action fighter? Is that it?
Yeah, action
Okay,
fighter.
got it. Sounds
Action
good to
fighter.
me.
Yeah. So, at any rate, thank you guys as always for listening, and we will see you next week with another episode of Amigos. Until then,
Adios.
adios.